Welcome to the Supplement Engineer Podcast. My name is Robert Chinetsky. Today we have the great fortune to be joined by an IFBB pro, the founder of Granite Supplements, the mountain dog himself, John Meadows. Thank you for coming back, John. You were one of our earliest guests, and it's great to have you back on the show.
Yeah, man, my pleasure. Glad to jump on.
So how has the brand grown over the course of the past year? You know, what trials and tribulations did you go through in 2019, and then what positive trajectory are y'all on heading into 2020?
Well, this is so 2019 was a really good year for us. We made a lot of progress from a challenging 2018. We were able to get all of our products off of Amazon, where people had bought stuff and put it on Amazon, which created a tough situation with stores and with pricing. So we were able to do that in early 2019 and reestablish a lot of our old relationships, which helped the business. And we just, I don't know how else to say it, but we just hired some really good people, put some good people in place, and we all kind of share the same vision now on how we should kind of run the company. And this year, you're going to see a lot of new products. Last year was kind of this, let's get our business together. Let's make sure we're running things correctly. More of focusing on the business itself. And, we feel pretty good about where we're at there now. So now we get kind of the fun part. So now it's, well, what kind of things can we launch? What do people want? What do we feel good about? And, we're improving some of the products, which I think we're already in a real good place. So this year I would anticipate, we just launched the protein powder, which has got unbelievable reviews. We actually just put a PO in yesterday for the salted caramel. I mean, we're burning through that stuff like water. Like, we just launched it, so it's going really, really well.
Fantastic. Now, unlike a lot of the other athlete-run companies or companies that are, have a very high-profile athlete at the helm of it, you actually have a hand on the steering wheel as far as actually running the company and formulating the product. You're not just a pretty face that's on the label. Walk the listeners through about why you went with the blend and, what ratios you used, why you chose those ratios, and so forth.
Well, first of all, pretty face is not something you should ever say in a sentence involving me. Well, I've been taking protein powder a long time. Like, I go back to Mega Mass 2000 and Dynamic Muscle Builder, and I'm sure a lot of the older listeners can remember that. We used to take it when we didn't care what it tasted like, as long as it produced results, the old egg protein. Anyways, I've gotten a little bit more sensitive to protein powders in the last 10 years, creating a lot of, gastric distress and bloating. And, I can't sit here and tell you I know exactly why it is. It's the exact type of processing when you're making an isolate. I don't really know. What I can tell you, or my own body just changing, which is probably the likely answer. But what I can say is that just talking to people in the industry, I feel like one of the biggest drawbacks with protein powder is just the ability to digest it, first of all. There seems to be issues. And, then there was another piece I wanted to address. So sometimes when you drink a whey isolate, like, you're hungry an hour later.
Right.
Like, okay, well, I got the shake in, I got my protein and my calories, but now I'm starving again.
Mm-hmm.
Not a good feeling. I don't like that. So those were a couple things that I really wanted to address. So, and then there's I think, a general lack of understanding when it comes to whey concentrate and whey isolate as well.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of the pure whey isolate people kind of demonize whey concentrate, and wrongfully so, and vice versa.
Yeah,
there's not a whey isolate super cow or a whey concentrate sick, measly cow that produces an inferior protein. And you get some advantages with both. With whey concentrate, all of those people that says whey concentrate is garbage, they don't know what they're talking about. If you load it up with a bunch of garbage on top of it, then yeah, it's probably not going to be good. If you're lactose intolerant, like to a high degree, then you may have some issues with it. but it still is high in BCAAs. It's still coming from the same source, and you can talk about subfractions in your immune system and all that stuff, and it's really hard to find good data on that. But my general thought is whey concentrate is actually a really good protein. What I like about it, and one of the reasons why I put it in the blend, is because the texture it gives the protein as well.
Right.
So you get this nice creamy texture. And the way I isolate is, if you go, people are always like, well, there's so much more protein in it. No, they take a little bit of fat out and a little bit of lactose. So by percentage, then yes, there's a little more protein in it.
Right.
But you're like really splitting hairs, and making it seem like it's this big difference. So I like both. I like whey concentrate. I like whey isolate. I like putting them, and then kind of moving on from there. The casein in it kind of helps cure that while I drink it, and an hour later I'm starving again.
Right.
Now it's a little thicker. But what I wanted to do too was I wanted to make a protein that you could just shake in a shaker and drink it. Like, I don't want you to have to put it in a blender, clean the blender. We're getting really lazy these days, I know. But so I had to have the right amount of casein and isolate and concentrate. I'd play around with it for a little bit. So we found the good ratio that mixes perfect, that has a nice, really unique texture. And that's one of the things people are telling us, like, man, the texture of this is unbelievable. That's where the majority of the protein is. I did have some beef and egg protein in there. The beef protein is more from, the glycine, it's more for, I don't know, I would say connective tissue.
Yeah, the joints and support.
The joints.
Right.
And egg protein is kind of an old school protein, with a good amino acid profile as well. But so, and the taste is unbelievable. What we did is we sweetened it as much as we could naturally, and then it still wasn't to the level where I wanted it to be, where someone would drink it and it would like, wow, this is amazing. So then we added in some additional sweeteners. Okay. So I feel like we really nailed the taste, the texture. The other thing is we added digestive enzymes into it, more protease to be specific, to help you digest it. So I got to be careful I don't make too bold of claims and get sued. But I will tell you this: I haven't had one single person yet tell me that it upset their stomach, of all the people that's tried it. So that's kind of what went into the process and what we were trying to do there.
Fantastic. Now, as somebody that came from a time when protein powders were not the best tasting, didn't mix up the best, to where they are now, do you find, and with the circles of the guys that you run with, the elite athletes, the top bodybuilders, that typically kind of have that mindset of, I don't really care how it tastes, I want it to just be effective. How are you finding the taste and the textures being received by that kind of population, the ones that are maybe used to drinking anything and everything? I mean, that they're used to just substandard flavored products compared to now.
Well, I think that it's funny because a lot of the athletes that I work with they represent different companies. So I don't want to throw anyone under the bus here, but let's just say that they like the taste of mine better than oftentimes what they're already using. So, there's a lot of companies out there, man, I have tremendous respect for. Companies like NutraBio, those guys, I have tremendous respect for those guys. But I would put our protein powder up against anybody, taste-wise, for sure. And then, the macros are beautiful as well, and they're not loaded full. I used to drink, I'm a sucker for good marketing, and I used to drink Muscle Milk.
Yeah.
And of course, it had a lot of fat in it and things like that. And the fat wasn't like pure garbage. It was, they had, I can't remember exactly what fat they had in it. I can't remember if they had any MCT in it, or maybe they had a different oil. I can't remember. But our macros are really good. When you taste it, it's kind of hard to believe the macros are what they are based on the taste. But again, a lot of that's the texture. It has that creamy texture. So, yeah, man, I remember, you just kind of chucked it down in the old days, and you just hoped it worked. You might chew up some desiccated beef liver tablets with it as well if you were really hardcore.
Yikes. That sounds horrible.
Yeah, I'm happy to say that I think people are going to be the chocolate tastes like chocolate malt. The salted caramel is like I said, I can tell right now we're going to have to keep putting in increasingly bigger orders for it as well. And we have a really good vanilla too. So taste is absolutely not going to be an issue.
Excellent. With deciding which flavors you wanted to launch when coming out with the protein, now we've seen in recent years flavors have progressed beyond the typical cookies and cream, chocolate, vanilla, peanut butter, and people are coming out with like frosted donut, salted caramel, all these these fancy designer flavors is what I'm calling them. But I think the core of the market is still going with those tried and true flavors: the chocolates, the vanillas, the strawberries. When you were deciding which flavors, did any of that play into the decision of it, or have you been asked to do designer flavors? Do you even like the designer flavors, or do you like the tried and true guys?
So I like all the fancy schmancy donut stuff,
Mm-hmm.
pancake stuff, but you have to do some market research. And the
Right.
market research told us you need vanilla and you need chocolate. Like that's what the
Absolutely.
market research told us.
Yeah.
And like the salted caramel, um, when I tasted that, it was unbelievable,
Mm-hmm.
and it was unbelievable. And as my business partners and I, we're all kind of like, I don't know, man. I don't know that many people are going to try it. I mean, if they did, great, but
Yeah.
we were scared that people wouldn't try it.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, man, if they just try it once, it'll make a believer out of them. Let's roll the dice. Let's give it a shot.
Yeah.
So, we came to an agreement that, okay, we know we're going to do the chocolate vanilla because the market research says that we need to do that.
Right.
But we're going to trust you, John. We'll do the salted caramel. And like I said, we've already burned through our first order. People are already reordering it, that ordered it when we launched it a few weeks ago. So, um, I like kind of the fancy stuff. I'm gonna be honest with you. I do
Yeah.
feel let down a lot of the time though when I try those flavors.
Right.
They say, and like I said, I'm a sucker for marketing. Like I
Yeah.
see this beautiful label with this beautiful picture, and I'll buy it. I
Yeah.
want to try it. But man, most of the time I'm like, that really didn't taste like a donut.
Yeah, it falls really short, or if it's some kind of banana flavored stuff, it tastes like a runts banana. And my wife loves that flavor. I can't stand it. The banana runt was my least favorite of the runts candies, and so anything that remarkably resembles that flavor, I'll give it to her, and she can have the rest of it, or for all I care.
I've been very disappointed by the attempts at cereal flavors too.
Yeah, they all kind of
Like
taste the
I've been
same.
very disappointed in that. And I've tried a bunch of them, man. So I don't know what our next flavor is going to be. We actually had a team meeting yesterday, and we said in 3 months we're going to come out with another flavor. So we're actually going to be talking about that. What makes the most sense? I like peanut butter type flavor too. You get a little
Yeah,
peanut flour in there, you get this amazing taste. So it'll probably be something that's has some peanut butter in it.
hmm
Maybe it'll be a regular peanut butter. Maybe it'll be a chocolate peanut butter. Maybe it'll be vanilla peanut butter. I don't know. But I do think that if you get peanut butter right, if you nail it,
yeah.
that's another one that's really good.
Gotcha. I know you're a big pancake guy. Have you entertained the idea of maybe doing like a peanut butter pancake or like a maple flavored kind of thing at all?
Yeah, I have. But I've tried some of the other brands that have tried that, and
Hmm
I was like, oh man, that's not very good.
Yeah.
If we're going to do this, we need to do a lot better job. So I would love to do that.
hmm
We'll see what happens. But I mean, I love the donut idea. I love the pancake idea.
Yeah.
I love all those ideas. So it's all on the table for me. We just got to make sure we nail it. There's nothing more disappointing than like you expect something to be so good,
Yeah.
and you drink it, and you're like,
Horrible.
oh man, well, it's not that good. So
Fully agree with you. Give us a little insight into what's the typical day-to-day business dealings for you as far as from the company aspect. I know you film a lot of content for the Mountain Dog YouTube channel, which is phenomenal, by the way. The amount of free information and quality information you're putting up there is next level. It's amazing. Um, Aside from that and your own personal workouts and being with your family, what are you doing on a day-to-day from a business standpoint as running the brand?
well, I'm very fortunate that I have some awesome business partners, and we have one lady, Shelly, that runs the customer service part for us, and she helps coordinate shipping and things like that from where we ship out of. I have two other business partners that they used to actually own a manufacturing facility. Very, very, very sharp guys, very sharp minded when it comes to business, but they're also just good people. So we can have discussions on what makes sense for the customer. And I'll give you an example. So we've done progressively better in 2019. And one of the guys, they used to own their own manufacturing facility. But anyways, so one of the guys, he said, I know we can get better pricing on our raw ingredients. That's his space. He knows that, right? So just a combination of him being able to negotiate better and us putting in bigger orders because we're just moving more volume now. We were able to save, $1.50, $2 a unit on one particular product. Like that's a big deal.
Big, yeah.
That's big. So what do these guys do? They say, well, what do you think, John? Should we just make more margin now? Should we lower the price? Like, what do you think we should do? And I had to really think about it because I'll tell you exactly what we're talking about. We're talking about premium, right? It used to be arc reactor.
Right.
So I'm like, man, we don't really make any money on it. It would be nice if we actually made some money on it.
Yeah.
And my business partner said, well, we were thinking something different. We were thinking we're at a little bit higher price point, so we'd actually like to make the product even better. I said, okay, all right. Well, what were you thinking? So, we were talking about, and this is already done, and we're packaging it up now. So we talked about, okay, what would it make sense to put in this formula? Because it's already a really strong formula. What would it make sense? So anyways, you're going to see something really cool come out here real soon. And I said, well, what are we going to do with the price? And we said, and we were on agreement, we're not going to change it.
Yeah.
Like we're saving a little bit of money, but we're going to put it back into the product. So now the product is even better. So we're not going to charge more. We save money, so we don't feel it's right to charge more. Like, man, that's good guys right there.
Absolutely.
I mean, those are guys that, to me, it looks like these guys are really good at business. So if anyone thinks to themselves, these guys aren't very good, they've sold a business for over $300 million. Trust me, they know what they're doing. All right. So these guys know what they're doing financially.
Yeah.
But their thought was, let's make something better for the consumer. And if you look through my history, my business models of everything I've done, it's always been, I'm going to do the absolute best I can for the consumer every time. Right. I mean, if you look at like my YouTube channel, I'm not holding back. I'm giving out everything.
Yeah.
Right. So that's the kind of partners I have. So it makes it really cool, and it makes me real excited about this year. But so anyways, I just thought you'd like a little insight kind of into, kind of what was going on in the background.
Yeah, that's phenomenal. Since those two business partners at one point owned a manufacturing facility, did they help you figure out which manufacturer to use? Because you and I are recording this post ABH Pharmagate, where that they got busted for all kinds of shenanigans, and y'all didn't use them. But what I'm saying is, is the current manufacturer you're using now, did they help you figure out a good manufacturer, or did you already know where you wanted to go with that? And how did you go about vetting which is a good manufacturer versus which is not such a good manufacturer?
Yeah, I mean, that was one of the skill sets they brought. Like, I knew a lot of manufacturers,
right,
but they were even more familiar than I was. So one of the first things they did was we started pricing stuff out with multiple manufacturers who they trusted, and to make sure we were getting a better deal, but to also engage some other really good manufacturers. We don't just have one manufacturer. So, from my side, if someone tells me I'm going to have a product ready for you in, say, 12 weeks, and 12 weeks comes and they're like, no, sorry, it's going to be another month. Like, that's not going to work for me.
Right.
Like, you can't treat our company like that, and some manufacturers have their own brands, and so they'll put them on the line ahead of you. So nobody's going to hold a gun to our head and say, you're at our mercy. So we actually have multiple manufacturers that we work with. And hey, as long as they're coming through on their end, and they're doing great, then we'll continue to use them. As long as they're giving us good service, good pricing, there'll be no issues. But, again, having multiple manufacturers allows us to do that.
Correct.
Whereas I don't know that a lot of companies really are in that position. But as soon as something goes wrong, as soon as one manufacturer says, "Oh, our supplier burnt their facility burnt down in China," that's one of the kind of common things you hear. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, right, it burnt down in China. Yeah, right. So we can't get this one ingredient, or yeah, we thought we'd have you done in 12 weeks, but it's actually going to be 16 weeks. It's like, that's a good way to lose our business.
Exactly.
So we do have multiple manufacturers that we're very happy with right now. We have zero issues with any of them, and hopefully it'll continue to be that way.
Gotcha. That's one thing I've always wondered from the brand owner's side, is that you go into, business with these, or you're almost essentially forming a partnership with a contract manufacturer. You're paying them for a service, and they're agreeing to return your product in X amount of weeks. And I've always wondered, well, let's say you use that example. They tell you you're going to have a product ready in 8 to 12 weeks, and then they say, "Oops, whatever reason they give you, whether it's made up or legitimate, they say, well, we can't give this to you for another month," which that's crippling to you as a business owner. Do y'all have any kind of way to reclaim that lost time? Can you take them to court? Can you get your money back? I mean, still, if you get your money back, you're still out another 6 to 8 weeks, because then you have to turn around and go to another manufacturer. So when you're faced with those issues, do y'all have any way to get some recompense for getting screwed over, for lack of a better word?
You'd have to have an ironclad contract, and even then, it's a nightmare. So you're best to just not get in that position to begin with. I can guarantee if you tell them you're going to take them to court, they'll either put the stuff on, they'll run it the next week, or they'll say, "Well, screw you guys, we're not going to run it, period."
Gotcha. Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, I've had that happen. I had in 2018, but this is a manufacturer we no longer do business with. We were expecting a particular product, and they said they had one ingredient they couldn't get, and it ended up wasn't like a week delay. It was upwards of 2 months. And at the time, the product, it was the old arc reactor.
Mm-hmm.
And at the time, it was our number one product. So we were out our number one product, right? So our revenue took a dip, and of course your expenses aren't going anywhere.
Correct.
So it really hurt our company, because they said, I don't know what the deal was, and we don't do business with them anymore, but it got pretty messy. Because it hurt our company, It's like, look, you guys told, and that was one of the lessons, was like, we're not going to get in this position again. So, if somebody does that to us now, we have the formula. We'll just, the other companies have the formulas. We'll just send it to somebody else and say, you run it. We're done with these guys. Mm-hmm. But yeah, man, that can create a major issue, especially when it's products that are your top selling, one of your top sellers. I mean, there goes the revenue, right?
Correct.
So.
When you're going about formulating a product, obviously the industry sees an influx of new ingredients every single year, and a lot of companies will rush and put those new ingredients in there to try to get some of the cachet that those ingredients they're trending with. How much evidence do you need to see on a new ingredient before you feel comfortable recommending it, testing it, using it yourself, or incorporating it into one of the Granite products?
Steve, that's the $1 million question, because on one hand, you want to put ingredients in there that are just time tested, like creatine. Like, you can't really debate if creatine works.
Right.
But on the other hand, you don't want to be like everybody else, and you want to be cutting edge, right?
Correct.
So, you can be cutting edge, but what if the product maybe the ingredient you use is cutting edge and it's phenomenal, or maybe later comes out it's garbage, and that's the tough one. And I err a little bit more. Well, first of all, I will have samples made, and I'll try the products. I'll have my friends try them. Other people in the business will try them.
Yeah.
So that's number one. I would never put something on the shelf that I haven't really tested for a long time myself.
Okay.
So that's number one. Now, if I do that and I feel like, man, I really like this, then I'll move forward with it. If the feedback comes from everybody that, hey, this is solid, it works great, or if the feedback is the opposite, it's really no different. We're testing a formula out right now with one particular ingredient, with it and without it. It's a no stem pump that we're very excited about, actually. And we have one ingredient in there. We want to see if it makes a difference.
Yeah.
If it really truly makes a difference. And if I can tell a difference after using each one of them, like I want to use one for 2 weeks, and then I'm going to use the other one for 2 weeks. And I want to see if I can tell a difference. Mm-hmm. The ingredient is very expensive. It's going to cost us like $1.25 a unit. So if it is a great ingredient, it's going in there.
Right.
If it doesn't do anything different, it's not going in there. It's as simple as that.
Hmm.
So, um, so there's a balance there. There's a balance. You want to have the good stuff, but you also you want to get new stuff out there.
Yeah.
You want to move forward. We were the first ones to put TeaCrine in at 100 milligrams, for example,
Yeah.
and there wasn't like a mountain of evidence for it working,
Hmm.
being a dopamine agonist or anything like that. I mean, there was some evidence out there, but that turned out to be a phenomenal ingredient.
Agreed.
To this day, I still think it's an incredible ingredient.
Yep.
Nobody else was doing it. There was like a 10, and then we had another ingredient that we used. We were the first ones to bring it to market. So it was a meal peptide. We called it Vasodrive.
Yep. Vasodrive AP. I love that. That's another really good ingredient I like.
Yeah, a ton of evidence behind it and preventing vasoconstriction and so forth. So the supplement world weren't really using that. We brought that to market as well. Now you'll see it in a lot of formulas.
Right.
So I think in those cases, we made pretty good decisions. In the case of the Vasodrive, I think it had a lot of evidence to support it. And for some reason, other companies were afraid to make that leap, I guess. The TeaCrine, I think it was kind of like middling level, but now we're seeing it even helps caffeine uptake. So we had lower caffeine, and I could just tell, like, man, there's something about this stuff where there's a synergy there. And then all of a sudden later, oh, wow, we didn't know that when we came out with it.
Yep.
We didn't, so we took a chance on it. And I still to this day will say that's one of my favorite ingredients. So there is a balancing act there.
There is. And y'all were one of the first people back in Arc Reactor to make TeaCrine actually taste decent. It was not, because every other product I had tried it in outside of Arc Reactor, there was just this horrendous bitter aftertaste to it. And I'm somebody that likes bitter food, so for me to say something is bitter and undrinkable, it verged very closely on that. Congrats on making it tasteless before tasteless TeaCrine was really a thing too.
Well, we had to go outside the manufacturers. We had to go to a flavor house to do that, because one of the things that some of my peers that are with companies told me was, well, we know it works, but we can't get it to taste right.
Right.
And I took that as kind of a challenge. Well, I know it works too, and I'm going to somehow find a way to make it. So we went to a flavor house. It took them a while to get it right, but once they got it right, man, I remember that tangerine was phenomenal. It was phenomenal. So it took some work on our end, but so we made it happen.
Did you mess around at all with TeaCrine's other brother, Dynamine? Have you experimented with that at all, and what's your feedback?
You know what? I did actually, and we were contemplating putting it in high stem actually. I was not as impressed by that. That one, for some reason, I didn't get and if you look at like the chemical structure, like you said, it's like it's its little brother and it's supposed to be fast acting, but I just didn't get the feeling out of that. The folks I had around me trying it said, nah, like TeaCrine better. For us, I didn't get the feeling that I wanted to get, so I don't use it.
Yeah, I'm the exact same way, and I'm starting to see like the trio of caffeine, TeaCrine, and Dynamine used in some other pre-workouts and nootropics these days, and it really just leaves me feeling flat. And much like you, I really enjoy the additive effect of caffeine and TeaCrine, but when you put all of them together, or just caffeine and Dynamine together, I don't know what it is. I wish I could figure it out. I've yet to figure out a reason why.
Yeah, I don't know, but I was excited when I tried it. I couldn't wait. The story was, this is a fast acting TeaCrine. It's going to hit you quicker. So I'm excited. I'm like, okay, I can't wait to feel sharp. And then I was like, I don't feel anything, man. So I tried it for probably a month. Also you have to take into people's physiology is different. The way they break down that's all unique to people. So I don't just base everything based on just me, but my people around me were saying the same thing. We were all kind of like, well, we can do this, but none of us personally would take it. And I'm like, yeah, let's pass.
Yeah, let's scrap it. What was I going to say? So earlier you mentioned, you answered one of my questions where you said a non-stim pump is in the works for later this year. Is there anything else you can tease about what may be in the works aside from other flavors of Granite Protein too?
Oh, yeah. So the next up on the list is, so we also just launched a new Intra Carb flavor, fruit punch. Did you notice the bags?
Yeah, I did see the bags for the protein and the Intra Carb.
The when you actually hold that bag in your hand, it's a really high quality bag. And I know people like to laugh, but you actually can tear off the top, and it's actually a straight tear. It doesn't turn into a nightmare.
Oh, that's
When
good.
you It unzips real easy, and then it seals real easy. Like, people laugh at that, but I've had bags before where it's a disaster getting it open, and then you can't close it right. You're sitting there and you're wrestling with it.
Yeah.
So we actually paid a little extra to have like the ultimate seal, the zipper thing at the top.
Yeah.
But we're going to environmentally friendly bags for all of our products, actually. And the bags look phenomenal. Like, the packaging looks beautiful. It looks really, really good. So we have a new flavor for, we have a new pre-workout coming soon.
Okay.
That with the and I'll give you one of the additional ingredients. So we've actually added in some nitrates to it.
Nice.
So, amongst other things,
And those are not cheap. So yeah, that's yet another example of going top dollar with the brand.
Yeah, and we're not changing the price that we charge wholesale. We're not changing the price that we charge consumers. Like, nobody pays anything extra. You just get a better product. So we have a third flavor coming out there, in addition to the changes in the formula. Actually, you mentioned how I'm involved in the business. I actually got to create a barcode tonight to send for the. That's how deep I am into some of this stuff. But so we have a third flavor coming out for our pre-workout, which is going to be changed, and then the amino acids. We also were able to do the. You're getting all the like background story here from me. We were also able to save a little bit of money on the aminos. So what we're doing there is we actually lowered our price and we added more amino. So
Awesome.
That's a pretty good combination,
Yeah.
I think. Where the milligrams or the grams is going up for the BCA and the EAA part, particularly for the BCA, and we lower the price. So again, we're able to get a better deal. So we're making something better, and in this case, we're even able to lower the price a little bit. So you'll see that coming out. So we have the non-stem pump, the upgraded formula, the pre-workouts, another flavor of protein, and then we have some functional foods that we're playing around with that'll follow that as well.
Very cool.
So yeah, so there are a lot of really, really good things going on right now and behind the scenes, and we're moving on them. The non-stem pump, I'm due to have the samples next week to try it, so I can't wait to try it and get to the gym and
put it to
give
use.
that a run.
With the Intra Carb, you've got a 2-to-1 ratio of cluster dextrin to palatinose to dextrose. So 10 grams of cluster dextrin and 5 grams each of palatinose and dextrose. Have you messed around with other carb sources, and what made you settle on that ratio? And have you actually noticed, say you mixed up 20 grams of cluster dextrin and use that versus 20 grams of maltodextrin versus 20 grams of something like Carb 10 or one of the other kind of carb supplements, or Carbolin is another big name on the thing, or Vitargo. What are some of your experiences, and what led you to ultimately decide on cluster dextrin? Because I know you've been a fan of that for years now. As long as I've been in the industry, which has only been 5 years or so, I associate you with that ingredient.
Yeah, well, I learned about that ingredient through Biotest when I used to work for those guys, and I looked it up on the Glico website. I studied it, but the truth is it's actually really expensive for carbohydrate. So I looked at every kind of, you mentioned Carb 10, fractionated pea starches, waxy mazes. I looked at everything I could find to try to get the price down because it is expensive. Yep. I could not find another carbohydrate that could help with the recovery aspect, the lack of muscle soreness, that I could not duplicate that. I tried it with Vitargo. Like, if I had to say what's my second favorite, I'd probably say Carbolin. I could not, I tried combining every single type of carbohydrate I could find. I'm talking everything. I'm talking sweet potato starches. I'm talking rice mixes, anything you can think of. I've tried mixing it with essential aminos, and I could not duplicate the level of recovery I could get when I mixed cluster dextrin with the aminos. Now, but here's what I did find. It didn't have to be all cluster dextrin. When I initially was trying it out, when I was using 20, 40, 60, even up to 80 grams, it was all pure cluster dextrin. And what I did find was as long as I had a good 20 or 30 in there of the cluster dextrin, then the other sources weren't as important.
Okay.
So, like, I'll tell people take 20 or 30 grams of cluster dextrin and then just add in some Gatorade.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but I feel like with the 20 or 30 grams of the cluster dextrin, you're getting kind of that steady level of insulin response. It's not a spike. It's a nice steady level of insulin response. It manages cortisol. It manages muscle protein breakdown. I feel like over the last 3 or 4 years, that's where I'm headed with this.
Mm-hmm.
And I do like the second carb source, the isom. I can never pronounce it. Palatinose.
Palatinose,
right?
yeah.
That's kind of like a simple version of it. I do like that as well because it also doesn't create a big insulin spike. And that's the issue I had with a lot of the carbohydrates was a lot of the cheaper ones. You know, you'll hear people say, well, I drink it, then I get an upset stomach, or I go hypo, I get lightheaded, or I have a lot of energy, and then I crash. Like, that's not what I want. I want a steady level of insulin, not only for energy while you train, but for recovery, because I think it helps with the recovery aspect.
Right.
So that's kind of how my thoughts have evolved around carbohydrate supplementation.
Do you think carbohydrates, so often we see people quick to jump the gun and look for the next great muscle building ingredient, you know, I'm talking beyond creatine, beta-alanine, betaine stuff, you know, if we find out there's some new phytoecdysteroid that's hitting the market or some other new plant extract that's going to increase anabolism 486%. I'm making that number up, obviously, but do you think that carbohydrate supplements are kind of like the under the radar muscle building ingredient or supplement that nobody's really taking into account or giving any credence to?
Yes, I do think that.
Yeah. It seems like, and it's, I'm hoping we eventually see a shift to where people aren't scared of carb contents in there, either their pre-workout, their intra-workout, or their post-workout, because it seems maybe, but as long as keto and, you know, the carnivore diet and all this other nonsense keeps being in the mainstream, I have a feeling that it's still going to take a while for that tide to turn.
I think it just needs to be the right kind of carbohydrates, you know. But I'll tell you this. Like, if you let me do an experiment with people, and I said, okay, you guys are going to get aminos and you're going to get some carbs in your workout. Okay. And then we're going to take another group and you guys are going to get D-aspartic acid, right? Raises their testosterone up. You guys are going to get HMB, right? That stuff's amazing. It's as good as Anavar per some researchers, right? I guarantee you the aminos and carbs people are going to blow away the HMB and the D-aspartic acid dudes every time.
100%. I would agree 100% with that, and that's I can't believe you brought up the HMB thing. That's awesome. That was good stuff. You're shifting topics away from the supplement line now. You're somebody that does a lot of podcasts, and it seems like your profile was already high in the industry, but you know, 2019 and the latter part of 2018 seems like you really stepped it up as far as, you know, the YouTube channel with the daily videos and that, and also being on a lot of podcasts. Do you ever experience any kind of fatigue from doing all of those appearances? And granted, I'm asking you this on a podcast interview. I realize I could be setting myself up for, you know, a really bad outcome at this juncture. But you know, do you enjoy it? Do you ever get fatigued from it? You know, how does it work for you?
Well, so let me tell you how my mind works because it's similar to when I do seminars. I find it fascinating that and very, very humbling that you even want to hear what I have to say. So, you know, you got to realize in this industry for many years, I'm just a meathead bodybuilder. Like, people don't understand my education or what I've done or what I've studied. So the fact that in this new generation, the fact that people want to hear what I have to say, I find very humbling. So I don't really get tired of answering questions. I like talking. I like interacting with people. You know, sitting and going through all my social media stuff can sometimes wear on you a little bit. So it's nice to actually talk to someone where I can see them.
Right.
So I did 3 podcasts last week actually, and you know, I don't mind these at all. 9 times out of 10, I really enjoy them. Sometimes people ask me questions that I think are kind of silly, but I like talking about like mental stuff, social, like, the training stuff I love. Like, I've obviously loved training my whole life,
Right.
and dieting. But what I really like is when I get questions, like somebody asked me the other day about my banking background.
Hmm.
And I was like, yeah, I can tell you about that. It's
Yeah.
interesting to me, right?
Right.
Some people ask me about my kids and what they're doing. And I don't know if you watch my videos, you'll see I sneak in a yo-yo video with Alexander.
Yeah.
He's also doing Rubik's Cube contest now. He has his first Rubik's Cube contest coming up at the end of the month.
Crazy.
He's really, really good. He's also in the Math Olympics.
Hmm.
So I love talking about my kids. So it does get a little bit old talking about the training and dieting stuff, but at the end of the day, I still feel it's an incredible privilege for me to be able to make a living talking about this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So I still like, I had a really good job at the bank. I did a very good job.
Yeah.
But to be able to walk away from that and be able to do this now is extremely rewarding for me personally.
Absolutely. As somebody that's also left I'll quote, the real world of work to be able to work for themselves, it's a very liberating experience. Although you might be working longer hours at times, it doesn't feel nearly as burdensome or as stressful as that 9 to 5 office life does.
You know what blows my mind? Like when I'm out in California, like I think about how much time people spend in their car, like to get to work and get home.
Yeah.
And it's hours and hours and hours. And toward the end of my banking career, I left one bank and went to another one simply because I had about a 45-minute commute through traffic to get to one job, and the other job was a 2-minute drive.
Right.
I actually took a pay cut because I was like, I can save literally almost 10 hours a week if I do this.
Yep.
And I was still coaching people, and I just had kids, and I was like, I'm going to do this. That's one thing I always kind of joke around with people around here. It's like, I just avoid rush hour. Like sitting in traffic and wait is like that. Like if you want to talk about something that's a pet peeve, that's a pet peeve of mine. Yeah. Getting stuck in traffic, and you can only listen to so many help yourself CDs. Yeah, man, time is very valuable. When you're super busy and you have kids, and you really realize how valuable time is. So that's one of the other blessings of being able to kind of work on your own schedules. I don't have to go out and rush hour traffic and deal with that.
Correct. How do you feel about the whole thing with kids taking supplements? Would you ever allow your children to use any of your supplements at their present age, or do you think that they kind of need to wait until maybe they've hit like mid-teen years?
Well, sometimes it's a struggle to get my kids to eat protein. So I do let them drink my amino acids.
Yeah.
But I personally loved supplements when I was growing up. I didn't have a lot of money, but it always seemed like it's amazing how when you really like something, you'll find some money.
Right.
And I would always find money eventually to buy the big bags, the Mega Mass 2000. And so I don't mind that to a degree. Like I made pudding the other day with my protein. My kids had it. They each had pudding, and each little bowl of pudding actually had 2 scoops of protein. I think that's 46 grams of protein. But they usually like to eat stuff like cereal,
Right.
which, listen, I can't put them down because I lived on cereal when I was a little kid.
Exactly.
Like that's all I ate was cereal.
Yeah, it was much the same childhood for me too.
Yeah, I mean, so I'm not too hard on them, but you want them to have good eating habits, but they're also kids. So I'm not going to have them eating, cod and rice and asparagus for their meals, So I don't want to have a situation too where, you hear stories about these kids that are raised a certain way where they just rebel. And they get older, and then all of a sudden you can forget it. They go off the deep end. So, they have fun. They have their pizzas and they have their cereal. And, I always tell them you got to get your protein in. And the worst case scenario is you're at least going to drink a glass of milk.
Right.
But you always want the foundation to be good food when possible.
Yeah.
But sometimes, supplements can kind of help. Like I said, making the a smoothie or making pudding with protein, that's something that's tasty for them.
Yeah,
And look, even if they put whipped cream on it or whatever, they're still getting the protein, right? So
absolutely.
that's kind of how I look at it.
Gotcha. Earlier, you mentioned some of their intellectual achievements with the Math Olympics and the Rubik's Cube competition. Have they shown any kind of interest? I know so they also do football too, correct?
Yeah, they do football, they're in basketball, and they're in soccer.
Have you started to show them anything about in regards to resistance training, weightlifting? Have they shown any kind of natural interest or proclivities for wanting to do that?
Alexander loves the machines
Mm-hmm.
at the gym. Like he went to do his athletic workout. He has a coach that takes him to like footwork drills, and you'll see me popping up on my stories every once in a while.
Yeah.
On my Instagram, you'll see mostly Jonathan. He's a real fast one. Alexander actually likes the machine. So when we go to the gym, he always wants to do the chest press. And now he's got this thing where he wants to do a leg press. So we're kind of tinkering with it, I would say.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say we're on any kind of program or anything like that, but we're kind of tinkering with it. They just turned 11 years old in December. Alexander's going to be a big boy. He's 120 pounds. He's 5'2", 5'3". I told him, I said, he's in 5th grade. I said, when I was in 8th grade, I weighed 120. I wrestled 126. I remember I only weighed 120.
Yeah.
Said, so you're like where I was 3 years earlier,
Yeah.
He's going to be a big kid. Jonathan is the hyper athletic one.
Mm-hmm.
He's, how do I turn this off? Oh, just ignore that. Jonathan is like the hyper athletic one. He's the one that will go, he can do all these twisting back somersault crazy things on the trampoline. And, we're out in California one time and we're walking along and he's in the grass and he goes, "Watch this, Dad." He stops and he just does a back somersault, lands on his feet.
Impressive.
Just, not a handspring, a somersault.
Yeah.
Extremely athletic.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas Alexander at this point is more kind of like the brainiac, but he's big and strong.
Yeah.
So Jonathan learned all that stuff from watching Spider-Man cartoons. He would just watch Spider-Man do stuff, jump up on a wall and jump and spin off. So he'd try it.
Yeah.
So he's jumping up on the walls and spinning off and doing all kinds of crazy stuff. So it's pretty fun, man.
Yeah.
It's pretty fun, and I want him to just try everything. I love football. I'm not going to lie to you. I love football, but I want him to try everything and see, hopefully they'll find something they really enjoy.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll see how that turns out.
Excellent. I know you're a big comic book fan, as am I. What did you think of how they concluded the first 10 years of the Marvel Cinematic Universe with Endgame?
Well, I liked Infinity War better
Mm-hmm.
than I did Endgame. I thought I was much more into Infinity War. Endgame was good. I liked the battle scene at the end.
Yeah.
I thought that was pretty phenomenal when everybody came through the portals to fight. I thought it was pretty good, but honestly, I liked Infinity War better.
Yeah.
Like I felt like that was more intense.
It was. I don't like seeing the Avengers get their asses kicked like the last part of the movie. I'm not giving this away. That's the hard part because you like to see the good guys win. I mean, but Thanos was a great villain. I'm very curious to see the transition forward because the first few efforts from Marvel post Endgame, I was not a huge fan of. I did not like the new Spider-Man Far From Home. That seemed like they have completely abandoned the original Spider-Man storyline, making Mary Jane this kind of aloof girl that has the perennial life is so hard look on her face all the time. And I didn't like that movie at all. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, I wasn't super nuts about either. So I'm hoping that it gets the next several movies they've got lined up are better. Doctor Strange 2 and the next Thor movie and all of that stuff.
Well, they were kind of tipping stuff or hinting like with Warlock.
Yeah.
I thought, man, they're going to have Warlock. Like, they were hinting at that in the Guardians of the Galaxy, and then, the Collector, right? The Collector there was something in there. So I was like excited about that. I don't know if they're going to do anything with him or not. And then what I thought was interesting too, I'm a big Namor fan.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So, in fact, right behind me, I have some really old Namor comics, like really old, like from the 60s. But they did make a reference was it in Black Panther or was it in Endgame where she said one of the Wakandan said, "We handle it by not handling it." Do you remember that
Yeah,
line?
I think that was Black Panther.
I think it was, but I think they were referring. She was talking about weird stuff they saw going on in the ocean,
Mm-hmm.
and I think they were talking about Namor and the Atlanteans.
Gotcha, interesting.
And
I'm gonna have to go back and
so
watch that and see.
yeah, I think so. So I'm a big Namor fan.
Yeah.
So I would love to see him get involved, and I thought The Rock would have been a good Namor just by the way he looks and
Yeah,
everything.
yeah, the right build and everything. You're right.
I thought he would have been perfect to be Namor. So, anyways, that's what I'm hoping happens at some point. We'll see.
Very cool. Awesome, John. Well, thank you so much for your time today. I know you've got to get going. Thanks again, as always, for this. This was a wonderful conversation. And here's the part where you can shamelessly plug anything and everything regarding to Granite Supplements and Mountain Dog.
Yeah, I mean, granitesupplements.com is the website, and mountaindogdiet.com is where I sell my programs. I think I have 20 listed on my website now. I've actually built closer to 40 of them, but I have 20 workout programs on my website. And then my YouTube is Mountain Dog One. And then if people want to do more just consulting and Q&A with me, I have a cell phone app called Mountain Dog Diet that's available on Google. It's in the Play Store and all that. And basically for $30 a month, you can ask me all the questions you want. I think that's a pretty sweet deal. Plus, you get access to 9 years worth of membership data that I have on there, seminars I've done around the world. So it's actually a really sweet deal.
Wow.
But that's it.
Awesome. Well, then I'll make sure to include links to all of that in the show notes. And thanks, John. Have a great day, and I'll see you in Ohio for the Arnold soon.
All right. See you soon.
All right. Bye.